"Can you give me a hug?" a black lady asked the Korean Mafia Boss. His reaction left her in tears. "Hello, everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let us return to our main character. Can you give me a hug, please? Those 7 words, whispered by a stranger on a spring afternoon in Seoul, would shatter a powerful man's carefully constructed world and ignite a story no one saw coming. Least of all, the broken young woman who was simply trying to remember what human touch felt like. This is a story about a desperate plea, a man who chose compassion over reputation. Before we continue, please tell us, where in the world are you tuning in from? We love seeing how far our stories travel. Park Jin-woo was sipping his Americano on his usual bench outside the Moonlight Cafe in Gangnam, watching cherry blossoms drift down onto the pristine sidewalk. It was one of those rare April afternoons where Seoul's usual smog had cleared, painting everything in soft golden light. His daughter Soo-min was inside having her weekly auntie day with his younger sister, which meant he had exactly 30 minutes of precious solitude. He had learned to treasure these moments, the quiet, the ability to finish a thought without being interrupted by questions about K-pop idols or whether clouds had feelings. Most people in this district knew to keep their distance from him. Park Jin-woo was not just any businessman. He was the chairman of the Hanseong Group, and whispers followed him everywhere about the empire's shadowy origins. The legitimate tech companies were just the surface. Beneath lay something far more dangerous. He was watching a young couple share tteokbokki through the cafe window, lost in thought when he sensed someone standing beside him. Close, too close for a stranger in Seoul. Jin-woo turned. A young woman stood there, and the first thing he noticed was how thin she was. Fragile, like she might blow away with the next gust of wind. Her dark skin glowed against the afternoon light, her black hair pulled back in a simple braid. But it was her eyes that stopped him. Deep brown eyes, impossibly sad, fixed on him with a desperation that made his chest tighten. "Excuse me," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, shaking slightly. "I am sorry to bother you, but can you give me a hug, please?" Jin-woo blinked. In his 36 years on this earth, he had been asked for many things: money, favors, protection. Someone had once begged him for mercy on their knees, but this was entirely new territory. The woman must have seen the confusion flash across his face, because tears immediately welled up in her eyes. "I am sorry. I know that is strange. I should not have." She started to turn away, her shoulders hunching inward like she was trying to disappear into herself. "Wait." Jin-woo stood up quickly. His coffee sloshed slightly in his hand. There was something about her, about the raw vulnerability in her expression, that reminded him of the broken people he had encountered throughout his complicated life. That look of someone who had been hurt so badly they had forgotten what kindness felt like. Someone who had learned to expect rejection. "It is okay," he continued, setting his coffee down on the bench. "Are you all right?" The simple question broke something in her. Her face crumpled, and she shook her head. "No, I am really not. I have not had a hug in so long. And I saw you sitting here, and you looked, I do not know, you looked kind despite everything. And I just thought maybe." She trailed off, mortified by her own request. Her hands were trembling. She looked like she wanted the earth to swallow her whole. Jin-woo's heart cracked open. He did not think. He just opened his arms. "Come here," he said softly. The woman hesitated for only a second before stepping into his embrace. The moment his arms closed around her, she collapsed against his chest, her thin frame shaking with quiet sobs. He could feel how bony her shoulders were, how she trembled like a leaf, barely clinging to its branch in a storm. She held onto him like he was a life raft in the middle of a vast, dark ocean. Jin-woo held her gently, carefully, the way he held his daughter after her worst nightmares, the ones where she dreamed about losing him too. He did not say anything. Sometimes words were useless. Sometimes all another human being needed was to be held, to be reminded that they existed, that they mattered. His bodyguards, standing at a distance, exchanged confused glances. They had never seen their boss do anything like this. The man who commanded fear across Seoul's underworld was holding a crying stranger on a public bench. After what felt like both a moment and an eternity, the woman pulled back, wiping frantically at her eyes. "I am so sorry," she said, her voice thick with embarrassment. "That was completely inappropriate. I promise I am not crazy. I am just going through something really difficult right now. She looked down at her feet, unable to meet his eyes. I am Grace Okonkwo, and I swear I do not normally approach strangers and ask for physical affection. Despite the heaviness of the moment, Jin-woo smiled. Park Jin-woo, he replied, and for what it is worth, you do not seem crazy. You seem like someone who needed a hug. He gestured to the bench. Would you like to sit down? Maybe tell me what is happening. You do not have to, but I have about 25 minutes before my daughter comes out, and I am a better listener than people give me credit for. Grace looked at him, really looked at him, like she was trying to figure out if he was real or some kind of hallucination. You do not have to do that, she said quietly. You have already been kinder than you needed to be. I know I do not have to, but I would like to. Come sit. They sat together on the bench, and for a moment neither of them spoke. Grace seemed to be gathering herself, deciding whether to trust this stranger who had just held her while she cried. Finally, she took a shaky breath. Today marks exactly 2 years since my entire life fell apart, she said, staring at her hands folded in her lap. 2 years ago today, I was driving home from my nursing shift at a hospital in Lagos. I had just worked a double, 16 hours, and I was exhausted but happy because I had helped a patient who had been struggling finally make a breakthrough in their recovery. She paused. Her jaw tightened. I was stopped at an intersection, just sitting there waiting for the light to change, probably half asleep if I am being honest, and then this truck came out of nowhere and slammed into my car at full speed. The driver had fallen asleep at the wheel. He hit me doing about 80 kilometers per hour. Jin-woo winced. Grace, the impact crushed the driver's side of my car like it was made of paper. I remember the sound, this awful screaming of metal and glass shattering, and then pain. So much pain I could not even scream. I remember thinking, this is it. This is how I die. At a traffic light in Lagos on a Tuesday, she looked up at the cherry blossoms falling around them, blinking back fresh tears. But I did not die. Sometimes I wonder if that would have been easier. They had to cut me out of the car. The paramedics told me later that I had sustained severe spinal injuries and a shattered pelvis. My L4 and L5 vertebrae were fractured. My pelvis broke in 3 places. That is, Jin-woo struggled to find words. I cannot even imagine. I spent 8 months in hospitals and rehabilitation centers, 3 surgeries on my spine, 2 on my pelvis. Learning to walk again was. She laughed bitterly. They do not tell you in the movies how humiliating it is, how much it destroys your sense of self when you cannot do basic things anymore, when you have to relearn how to walk like a toddler, holding on to parallel bars while therapists cheer you on for taking 3 steps. I have seen people go through similar recoveries, Jin-woo said quietly. It takes incredible strength. Grace shook her head. It does not feel like strength. It feels like survival, and barely that. The medical bills buried me. I had some coverage, but not enough. Not nearly enough. Every surgery, every night in the hospital, every therapy session, it all added up. I am drowning in debt. Jin-woo listened without interrupting. But here is the thing, Grace continued. I could have handled the physical pain. I could have handled the debt. What I could not handle was the loneliness. She finally looked at him, and the anguish in her eyes nearly undid him. My parents passed away when I was young. I was raised by my grandmother. She died 3 years before the accident. I had married someone I thought loved me, Chidi. We had been together for 4 years. I thought he was my person. Her voice cracked. He left me 2 months after the accident, said he could not handle seeing me like this, which is code for I did not sign up to be married to someone with chronic pain and disability. He filed for divorce while I was still using a walker. The papers were barely signed before he was with someone else. Jin-woo felt anger rise in his chest. That is, I know. She took another shaky breath. I lost my job because I could not go back to nursing. The physical demands were too much. My disability payments barely covered rent. I heard there were opportunities in Korea for English teachers and healthcare workers. I came here hoping for a fresh start, but instead I found nothing, just more loneliness. A country where I do not speak the language, where I am always the outsider, the foreigner. What about friends? Jin-woo asked gently. Left behind in Nigeria, Grace said, and making new ones here, with the language barrier, with my health issues, with being a black woman in a country that does not always know what to make of me. She turned to face him fully. Do you know what the worst part is? Not the pain, though that is there every single day. Not the debt or the loss of my career or even my husband's betrayal. The worst part is that I realized this morning, 2 years to the day of the accident, that I have not had any physical affection. Not a hug, not even a handshake that meant something. In all that time, I felt like I was disappearing, like I was not even human anymore. Just this ghost moving through the world, taking up space, but not really existing. Tears were flowing freely now. I left my apartment today thinking I might just walk until I could not walk anymore. But then I saw you sitting here, and something about you looked, I do not know, safe, kind, despite the intimidating men standing nearby, like maybe you would understand. And she covered her face with her hands. I am sorry. This is too much. You did not ask for my life story. Jin-woo sat with her words, feeling their weight. Finally, he spoke. 4 years ago, my wife was killed, he said quietly. Grace's head snapped up. Her tear-stained face registered surprise. She was coming home from visiting her mother. It was late. A rival organization. They wanted to send me a message. They found her car. They ran it off the road. By the time the police found her, he stared at the cherry tree across the street, its blossoms falling like pink snow. I became a single father overnight, drowning in rage and grief while trying to explain to a confused toddler why mommy was not coming home. Soo-min. That is my daughter. She is 6 now. But back then she was so little. She kept setting a place for her mother at dinner, kept asking when she could show mommy her new drawings. His voice roughened. For a long time I felt exactly what you described. Invisible. Like the world had moved on and forgotten I was still standing in the rubble. People were afraid to get close to me, afraid of who I am, what I represent. I was a single father in a world that saw me only as dangerous. And I felt completely alone. They sat in shared understanding. 2 people who had been broken by life in different ways, but understood the same fundamental truth. Loneliness was its own kind of death. How did you? Grace started, then stopped. How did you survive it? Honestly, Soo-min saved me. I did not have the luxury of falling apart completely because she needed me and my work. Not the parts you might imagine, but building things, creating legitimate businesses. It reminded me that I could still do something good in this world. Before Grace could respond, the cafe door burst open with the force of a small hurricane. Appa, a little girl with shining black hair in pigtails and eyes like dark moons, came running out, followed by a laughing woman who could only be Jin-woo's sister. The child launched herself at Jin-woo, who caught her with practiced ease. Hey, little star. How was Auntie Day? So good we made Songpyeon even though it is not Chuseok because Auntie said we do not need to wait for holidays to eat delicious things, and I put so much sesame filling inside mine that it exploded, but in a good way, and Auntie laughed so hard she almost fell off her chair. Jin-woo's sister laughed. She is not exaggerating. I nearly did. She noticed Grace then, and her expression shifted to polite curiosity. Soo-min, this is my new friend Grace. The little girl turned to Grace with the unfiltered interest only children possess. Hello, I am Soo-min and I am 6 3/4, which is almost 7, she announced, climbing onto the bench between them without invitation. Are you friends with my Appa? Do you like BTS? I like all of them, but especially Jungkook because he is very good at dancing. Do you know what Appa says? He says I ask a million questions, but I counted once and it was really only about 47. So he is very wrong about math. For the first time since approaching Jin-woo, Grace laughed. Really laughed. The sound was rusty, like something that had not been used in a very long time, but genuine. Hello, Soo-min. That is a beautiful name. Soo-min beamed. I like BTS too, Grace said, and I think your Appa might need to practice his counting. Yes, finally someone understands. Soo-min bounced excitedly. Do you want to come to the park with us? We are going to feed the koi fish in the pond. Appa says we have to use special fish food and not bread because bread is bad for fish. The fish like it, but I think they would prefer bread, honestly. They seem sad about the healthy food. Jin-woo caught Grace's eye and mouthed, sorry, over his daughter's head. But Grace was smiling, a real smile that reached her eyes for the first time. Your Appa is very wise, Grace told Soo-min. I think taking care of the fish properly is important even if they do not know it. Do you want to come? Soo-min asked again. Please, you seem nice, and also you have very pretty hair, and I want to know how you braid it like that. Jin-woo started to object. Grace had been through enough today, but Grace spoke first. I would love that, and she sounded like she meant it. That afternoon at the park became the first of many. After Jin-woo's sister left, Jin-woo gave Grace his number before they parted ways, telling her to reach out if she ever needed to talk. She texted him a week later, tentative and apologetic. Is the offer for coffee still open? I promise not to cry this time, probably. Coffee turned into a weekly tradition, then twice a week, then 3 times a week, with Su-min often joining them, chattering away about school and K-pop, and her elaborate theories about whether the neighborhood cats had secret meetings at night to plan world domination. Grace fit into their lives like a puzzle piece they had not known was missing. She was brilliant. Her nursing background meant she could have intelligent conversations about health and medicine with Jin-woo. She was funny with a sharp wit that caught him off guard, and she was patient with Su-min in a way that melted Jin-woo's heart. His men noticed the change in him. The chairman smiled more, laughed more, seemed lighter somehow. They did not understand it, but they accepted it. One crisp May afternoon, they were at Namsan Park. Su-min was attempting to climb a tree, her dress getting dirty in ways that would horrify her grandmother. "Grace Uni, do you know what the best thing about the ocean is?" Su-min called out, using the Korean honorific she had decided Grace deserved. "What is that, little star?" Grace smiled from the bench where she and Jin-woo sat watching. "That it goes on forever and ever and never stops, just like Appa says his love for me does. But also there might be mermaids. I think mermaids would be nice. I would invite them over for dinner and Appa would have to learn how to cook seafood better." "I think that is a wonderful plan," Grace said, laughing. "Very hospitable of you." Jin-woo watched Grace watch his daughter, and something warm bloomed in his chest. Over the past 3 months, Grace had become more than a friend. She helped him see parenting from a woman's perspective, something he had been missing desperately. She reminded him when Su-min might need new clothes, when to schedule doctor appointments. She could braid hair in intricate patterns, something Jin-woo had never mastered despite watching countless tutorials. In return, he helped Grace with things her chronic pain made difficult. He sent his driver to take her to medical appointments. He had groceries delivered to her tiny apartment. He made sure she never had to climb stairs when her back was hurting. He reached high shelves and opened stubborn jars and fixed things in her apartment that her landlord ignored. But more than the practical help, they filled the lonely spaces in each other's lives. They stayed up late texting about everything and nothing. They developed inside jokes. They became each other's people. "You are good with her," Jin-woo said quietly, watching Grace show Su-min how to identify different types of leaves. Grace glanced at him, surprised. "She is an easy child to be good with. She is amazing, Jin-woo. You are doing an incredible job. I am terrified every single day that I am failing her, that I am not enough, that she needs a mother and I cannot provide that. That my life, my world, will hurt her somehow." "Hey," Grace touched his arm gently. "You are not failing her. She is happy, healthy, curious, kind, confident. Those things do not happen by accident. They happen because she has a father who loves her desperately and shows up for her every single day. Whatever else you are a good father first." Jin-woo looked down at Grace's hand on his arm, at the easy way they had grown comfortable with casual touch. His heart did something complicated in his chest. "Thank you," he said softly, "for being here, for being part of our lives. I do not think you realize how much you have changed things for us." Grace withdrew her hand, looking flustered. "I should be thanking you. You gave a stranger a hug when she was too broken to even ask properly. You did not have to do that. Most people would have walked away, especially someone like you, with your reputation, your position." "I am glad I did not," Jin-woo said, holding her gaze. The moment stretched between them, charged with something neither of them was quite ready to name. Then Su-min called out, breaking the spell. "Appa, Grace Ani, come help me catch a butterfly. I want to ask it questions about what it is like to fly." They spent the rest of the afternoon at the park, and Jin-woo tried not to think too hard about how right it all felt, how natural, how much he looked forward to these moments, how Grace's laugh had become one of his favorite sounds, how somewhere along the way he had started to fall in love with her. Later that evening, after dropping Grace off at her apartment building, Su-min was unusually quiet in the back seat of the car. Jin-woo glanced at her in the rearview mirror. "A one for your thoughts, little star. Do you think Grace Ani is lonely?" Su-min asked, her voice small. Jin-woo's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Why do you ask that?" "Because sometimes when she smiles, her eyes look sad. Like she is happy, but also remembering something that makes her not happy. Like when you look at pictures of Ioma, you smile, but your eyes get watery." Jin-woo pulled into the underground parking of their building and turned to face his daughter. Sometimes her observations were so astute, they took his breath away. "I think Grace Unni has been through some really hard things," Jin-woo said carefully. "And sometimes when people go through hard things, it takes a while for all of them to feel completely happy again. But I think being with us helps her feel a little less lonely. Good, Sumin said firmly, unbuckling her seatbelt. Because she is part of our family now, even if she does not know it yet, I decided. Jinwoo's throat tightened. You decided? Yes, and my decisions are very final. That is what Auntie says, that once I make up my mind about something, good luck changing it. She paused at the car door. Appa, do you think Grace Unnie would like us to be her family? Like for real? I think, Jinwoo said slowly, that Grace Unnie would be very lucky to have us, and we would be very lucky to have her. Then we should tell her, before someone else tells her first and we miss our chance. That is what happened in the drama we watched, where the prince waited too long, and the princess thought he did not like her, and almost married the wrong person. It was very stressful. Jinwoo laughed, but his heart was pounding. Out of the mouths of children, 5 months after that first meeting outside the cafe, everything changed. Jinwoo was overseeing dinner preparation. Sumin had requested japchae with extra vegetables, surprisingly, when his security chief approached with a grim expression. Chairman, there is a situation. Jinwoo's blood ran cold when he learned what had happened. His late wife's parents, the Kims, had arrived at his office demanding to see him. They had not visited in the 3 years since their daughter's death. Their grief had been too overwhelming. They could not look at Sumin without breaking down. So eventually their contact had faded to birthday cards and occasional video calls. Now they were making accusations. He met with them in his study, keeping himself between them and the rest of the house, where Sumin was blissfully unaware. We have been watching, Mr. Kim said, his voice heavy with disapproval. This foreign woman you have been spending time with, who you have introduced to our granddaughter. What about her? Mrs. Kim's face twisted with something between fear and disgust. She is not Korean. She is not from our world. She has no family here, no status, no money. She is clearly using you, and you are exposing our granddaughter to this inappropriate influence. Jinwoo's hands clenched into fists. Grace is my friend. She has been nothing but wonderful to Sumin. She is a foreigner with nothing, Mr. Kim pressed. What do you really know about her? She could be after your money, your position. She could be working for your enemies. That is absurd. Is it? Mrs. Kim's voice rose. You are the head of the Hansong group. You have enemies everywhere, and suddenly this woman appears out of nowhere and gets close to you and your daughter. It is suspicious. She asked me for a hug, Jinwoo said flatly. She was alone and hurting, and she asked a stranger for basic human kindness. That is not a conspiracy. We are considering our options, Mr. Kim said coldly. Legal options. If we feel Sumin's environment is unsuitable, you may be powerful, but we are still her grandparents. The threat hung in the air like poison. You need to leave, Jinwoo said. Now. They left, but their accusations lingered. When Grace arrived later that evening, bright-eyed and carrying homemade Nigerian chin-chin she had somehow managed to make in her tiny kitchen, Jinwoo's heart broke. I tried a new recipe. They are a little burned, but I think that adds character. She noticed his expression immediately. What is wrong? He told her everything, watched her face pale with each word. When he finished, she set the treats down carefully. Her hands were shaking. Maybe they have a point, she whispered. Grace. No, Jinwoo, listen to me. Her eyes were filling with tears. They are right about some things. I am a foreigner. I have nothing. No money, no status, no family. I am a black woman in Korea with chronic pain and debt. You are. You are who you are. Powerful, important, dangerous to some. And Sumin. She is precious. She deserves. Do not, Jinwoo interrupted, his voice rough. I should give you space, Grace continued, backing toward the door. Let things calm down with her grandparents. I do not want to be the reason you lose Sumin. I could never forgive myself. Grace, please, I am sorry, Jinwoo. I am so sorry. She left, and Jinwoo did not stop her, partially because he was stunned, partially because some small, terrified part of him wondered if the complications were too much, not because of who Grace was, but because of who he was, and what his world might do to her. 3 weeks passed. 3 weeks of Grace not answering his messages beyond brief, polite responses. 3 weeks of Sumin asking constantly where Grace Unnie was. 3 weeks of Jinwoo dealing with his in-laws, setting firm boundaries, having his lawyers make it very clear that any custody challenge would be met with the full force of his considerable resources. The Kims eventually backed off. Their lawyer had apparently informed them they had no real case. Jinwoo was a good father. He provided an excellent home. His daughter was thriving, but Grace did not know that. And Jinwoo was too proud, too hurt, too confused to tell her. The house felt wrong without Grace's presence. Jin-woo found himself looking at his phone constantly, typing messages and deleting them. Sumin grew quieter, more withdrawn. She stopped talking about butterflies and mermaids as much. She stopped asking a million questions. "She is part of our family, Appa," Sumin said one night at bedtime, her voice thick with tears. "We are not supposed to lose family. We already lost Ioma. I do not want to lose Grace Unnie too." Jin-woo held his daughter while she cried, feeling like the worst father in the world. He had let fear drive away someone they both loved. He had let others' cruelty poison something beautiful. Grace, meanwhile, was drowning. In her tiny apartment in a neighborhood that was all she could afford, the loneliness that had been slowly healing came roaring back. She had allowed herself to believe, for a few precious months, that she could have a family again. That she could be loved despite her brokenness, despite being foreign, despite everything. She should have known better. Every night she looked at photos on her phone, Jin-woo and Sumin at the park, Sumin's drawings that she had taken pictures of, selfies the three of them had taken at a street food market. She traced their faces on the screen and let herself cry. She had asked a stranger for a hug 5 months ago because she had felt invisible. Now she felt worse than invisible. She felt like she had glimpsed heaven and then been cast back into darkness, like she had remembered what warmth felt like only to freeze all over again. Sumin, however, had had enough. "Appa, I need markers and paper," she announced one Saturday morning, her small face set with determination. "What for, little star?" "A very important project that is none of your business until it is done, but it is about Grace Unnie, so you have to help me when I am ready." 2 hours later, she presented him with a drawing. 3 figures holding hands under a bright yellow sun. One had shining black hair in pigtails, clearly her. One was tall with short hair, Jin-woo, and one had dark skin and a beautiful braided hairstyle and a big smile. Above them, in Sumin's careful 6-year-old handwriting, it said, "Our family," in both Korean and English. "We are taking this to Grace Unnie right now, because she needs to know she is still our family even if she is being silly and staying away." Jin-woo's throat tightened. "Maybe it is more complicated than—" "No, it is not," Sumin interrupted, a rare show of firmness. "She is sad. We are sad. Everybody is sad. So we fix it. That is what families do." How could he argue with that logic? 20 minutes later, they stood outside Grace's apartment building. Jin-woo had only been here once before, when he had insisted on seeing where she lived so he could ensure her safety. The building was old, the neighborhood rough. It made something in his chest hurt to think of her here alone. They climbed 3 flights of stairs, no elevator, and Sumin knocked firmly on apartment 307. The door opened. Grace stood there in sweatpants and an oversized sweater, her hair wrapped in a silk scarf, eyes red-rimmed like she had been crying. When she saw the drawing in Sumin's hands, fresh tears spilled over. "Grace Unnie." Sumin did not wait for an invitation. She threw her arms around Grace's legs, nearly knocking her over. "I made you a picture, and you need to see it right now because it is very important." Grace knelt down, wincing slightly. Her pain was clearly bad today. She took the drawing with shaking hands. She stared at it for a long moment, tears streaming down her face. "Sumina, this is..." Her voice broke. "This is beautiful." "You are not broken, Grace Unnie," Sumin said, with the absolute certainty only children possess. "Appa says broken just means you had something hard happen, but you are still here, and that makes you actually super strong, like a superhero. So you are a superhero, okay? And superheroes do not stay away from their families because of silly grandparents who do not understand things." Grace looked up at Jin-woo, still standing in the hallway, and something passed between them. Something raw and real and long overdue. "I dealt with the grandparents," Jin-woo said quietly, stepping forward. "Set firm boundaries. They have backed off. Their lawyer told them they did not have a case. But Grace, you need to understand something." He moved closer, his voice thick with emotion. "You are not a burden. You are not using me. You are not any of the things they said. You have made our lives better. Sumin loves you, and I." He paused, then pushed forward. "I love you too. Not as a friend, as more than that. I think I have for a while now, but I was too scared to admit it. Too scared of what my world might do to you. Too scared of moving on from my wife. But these past 3 weeks without you have shown me something important. Life is too short to waste time being scared." Grace's eyes widened. "Jin-woo, you do not have to say anything," he continued, his heart hammering. "I know it might seem fast. I know my life is complicated, dangerous even. But 5 months of friendship has shown me exactly who you are. You are strong, Grace. Stronger than you give yourself credit for. You are kind and funny and resilient. You make me want to be better. You make me laugh again. You make me feel like life has color again instead of just being shadows. I love you too, Grace whispered, tears flowing freely. I have loved you for months. I was just so scared. Scared that I would ruin everything. Scared that I was not good enough. That I would be too much trouble. That eventually you would realize what everyone else thinks, that I do not belong in your world. You belong, Jinwoo said firmly, taking her hands. You belong with us. Grace Unni, are you going to kiss my appa now? Sumin piped up, looking between them with intense curiosity. Because in dramas this is when people kiss, and it is kind of gross but also kind of nice, and I think you should probably do it because you both look like you want to. They both laughed through their tears. Messy, emotional, relieved laughter. Jinwoo reached up and gently wiped the tears from Grace's cheeks. Maybe not yet, he said to Sumin, though his eyes never left Grace's face. But soon. Okay, good. Because I need time to prepare myself, Sumin announced dramatically, flopping down on Grace's worn couch like she owned the place. It might be very shocking to my system. I need to build up my tolerance. Grace laughed. That real, genuine laugh that Jinwoo had fallen in love with. Thank you, she whispered to him, for not giving up on me, for seeing past all the broken pieces. There is nothing to see past, Jinwoo said. The broken pieces are part of you, and I love all of you, every single part. They stood there in the doorway of Grace's tiny apartment, with Sumin chattering in the background about how she was an expert at love because she had watched at least 15 K-dramas with Auntie. Spring sunlight streamed through the window, painting everything gold. It was not a perfect moment. Grace's apartment was tiny and shabby. Her pain was visible in the careful way she moved. Jinwoo's life was complicated with work and single parenthood and a dangerous empire. Sumin would need time to adjust to whatever came next, but sometimes perfect is not what matters. Sometimes what matters is two people choosing to be brave enough to love despite fear, to trust despite past betrayals, to believe that broken things can create something beautiful when they are put together with care and patience. Jinwoo realized something in that moment, something profound and simple all at once. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is ask for a hug from a stranger on a bench, and sometimes the bravest thing you can do is say yes. Have you ever felt invisible, like you were moving through the world, but not really living in it? Grace did for 2 years. She felt like a ghost. And then one ordinary April afternoon, she found the courage to ask a stranger for something simple. Human touch, human connection, proof that she still existed. Jinwoo could have said no. He could have walked away, uncomfortable with her request. Given who he was, given his reputation, most people would have expected him to. But he chose compassion. He chose to see her pain instead of judging her circumstances. And that single choice changed 3 lives forever. Because sometimes all it takes is one person willing to hold you when you are falling apart. One person who looks past your broken pieces and sees your whole heart. One person brave enough to say you matter. If this story touched your heart, I want you to think about someone in your life who might be feeling invisible right now. Someone who might need a kind word, a helping hand, or yes, even a hug. We are all walking through this world carrying invisible burdens. The least we can do is be kind to each other. And if you are the one feeling invisible, if you are the one struggling to remember what human connection feels like, please know that you are not alone. Your story is not over. Your pain does not define you. And somewhere out there is someone who will see you, really see you, and choose to stay. Jinwoo and Grace's story reminds us that love does not always look like fireworks and grand gestures. Sometimes it looks like 2 broken people choosing to heal together. Sometimes it looks like a 6-year-old drawing stick figures and declaring we are family. Sometimes it looks like having the courage to ask for what you need, even when your voice shakes. So be brave enough to ask. Be brave enough to answer. Be brave enough to believe that your story, messy and complicated and beautiful as it is worth telling. If this story resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe for more stories that remind us that we are all connected, that kindness matters, and that love can find us even in our darkest moments. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for believing that stories like this matter. Until next time, remember to be kind, to be brave, and to hold on to hope. It is always worth it.